Hey everybody, you're listening to the Combo Wombo podcast. I'm Chip Monk, and with me as always, Mr. Gimpy.
What up, Chip?
What's up, bro? I wanted to hit it with like the rumble. You're listening to the Combo Wombo podcast. That was a bit much.
No, it would have worked, and there's this opportunity squandered, is what happened.
Yeah.
That's okay
It's
though.
the story of my life, dude. It's like opportunity, like trying to hold sand in your hand at the ocean, dude.
Just never
in
take
the
it out,
end,
man.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow get in your shoes though, like when you get
every
home.
time, right? Even if
Yeah.
have you ever been on the beach in like boots, like work boots, and then somehow, even though like work boots, are pretty high up, still sand in there. I don't know how
Still
it
a little
happens.
bit.
Just
It's everywhere.
kicking it up, I guess, right?
This is the anti-sand podcast.
Anti-sand pod, right. Well, all the sand lovers are just like, fuck this pod, and they're
Yeah.
just turning it off right now.
It's just us and the.
I just wanted to talk about games. is what they said.
Just us and Darth Vader, dude.
Yeah,
of
right.
course, it's everywhere.
Right. I fucking hate it.
Yeah. If you remember the original
Yeah.
Star Wars,
Yes, sir.
the real trilogy,
all
1 through
Luke
3.
wants to do is get off that damn sand planet, right?
That's right, dude. Yeah, it's crazy in a universe of infinite possibilities. I keep ending up at like the same 4 damn planets.
Right.
Everything just kind of takes place at these 4 places. How convenient.
And the best part is Tatooine's supposed to be in like the outer ring. Like no one's supposed to like know about Tatooine, and nothing interesting happens there, but all of the
somehow somehow now a major spaceport that everybody.
It'd be interesting, and because they're doing an Old Republic movie, which I think they're calling it High Republic. I can't remember, but someone will correct
Republic.
Me. And I guess it'll have to do with like inner rim planets. So some that we haven't seen before. Plus, obviously, it'll probably be like a Coruscant focused thing, but it should be interesting.
When they had the new movies with like the gambling scene, it looked like they didn't have very much imagination for
that's
high society.
That's because that those movies were made by committee, so hopefully they learned their lesson. I doubt it, but
no, dude, that's too much money, dude. Like this is the
Star
thing.
Wars.
When you're gambling with that much money, everything's committee decision.
It's dumb.
Dude, it's dumber to take bet big on just random ideas by somebody.
I suppose, but when you have a set universe, though, it's not, the idea can't be that random,
it's outer space, dude. Like we just said, it's like infinite possibilities.
No, outer spaces, but Star Wars as a whole is its own universe, right? So they have a set of rules that they themselves govern. So the planets are infinite possibilities, but the context isn't.
Yeah, but look at like what they've done with that, because of it's like so open. Like they've had like bounty hunters shows. They've had you could do anything, right? Like you could do one about engineering. You could do one about like pod racing. You could make up a new thing about like this like weird animal horse racing that they're doing on that other gambling planet, dude. Like they had gambling. Like there wasn't gambling before in Star Wars.
Yeah, there was. The people were betting on the pod races and stuff. It's gambling.
Was there?
Yeah.
Well, there was like no proper casino.
Yeah.
I guess it.
I mean, and then at the bar scene, they were gambling too when Han shot Greedo. And yes, Han shot Greedo. Don't give me that bullshit.
They could have a whole space chess arc, dude. Of like a show.
Chess.
Yeah,
it's Queen's Gambit, but the intergalactic edition.
Yep, and it's just like those holograph chess. Yeah,
right.
It's an infinite possibility, and like that's just what they've showed us. And then it's like you can open up to even more possibilities of like a universe and stuff. So you need somebody to have a committee and reel it in, dude. I don't know. I think when you are playing at that level with hundreds of millions of dollars, like you'd rather have a mediocre success than a flop.
True, but the mediocre success will just get trashed by the fans. Well, I guess
but they're still going to go see it.
There. Yeah, that's true. That committee creation never really gives you anything good. I mean, I think it's fewer and farther between. And I think you can see that with any big franchise too. Like take the Marvel franchises, right?
Yeah.
Iron Man was made with Favreau, Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, just kind of like trying to make it work, right? And the bigger they got, the more like Kevin Feige was always like his big brain plan, but now the movies have this formula where you get these run of the mill Marvel movies that are just fine, right?
Yeah.
They're not great. They're not even good. They're fine. You don't regret watching it, but you're never watching it again. You know, at
It's
this
as
point, people.
bland as the popcorn that you're eating while you're watching it. You're like, oh, this is all right, but like you won't remember it.
I assume
after you leave the theater.
At the time this podcast is released, The Eternals will have been out for 2 days, and I assume that's one of those movies.
But have you seen Dune though, bro?
Have I seen Dune? Yes.
Yeah. I felt like that was the exact same problem where they're trying to build a huge franchise. The movie was way too long, and I don't know if I should.
Before you go, just not everybody's seen it who's watching, so just keep that in mind. Also, go on. Okay, go.
Yeah, spoilers for Dune, but once I tell you this, like you can't unnotice it if you watch it again. So I don't know. Do you want to know? Do you want this Pandora's box of?
I'll counterpoint it right away. Denis Villeneuve. This was the movie he wanted to make, and he had complete control.
All right.
Okay.
So do you want to know though?
Go ahead.
So they build it like this huge bombastic like planet, and things are happening, but there's only ever like 30 people on screen at a time ever, dude. Like there's like a scene like where they're like, oh, we're being invaded, and like. There's like the invading force and their force, and there's like 30 dudes on screen. And then there's like another part where they're like, we have to get to our spaceships. And because it's like such a beautiful like CGI masterpiece, they're like running to like these spaceships, and like it like zooms out and it shows like, you know, like 20,000-30,000 spaceships. And then it like shows like 12 dudes like running for them. And it's like, where are all the rest of the people, dude? I don't know. I guess I had to do like studio, whatever, you know, because of all the world things that are happening. But come on, man. You could have like CGI'd in some more people, some extras. You couldn't just get the same 30 dudes and like have them do that run 4 or 5 different times with different costumes on or something. Like,
I'll have to watch it again. I loved it.
Yeah, like once you see that, once you notice it, dude, you can't unnotice it.
Okay.
I'm like,
I
why
feel
is there
you're
only
more cynical
ever...
at most things though, so I feel you're exaggerating, but I can't confirm nor deny that.
It's just like, I was like watching it, like I noticed it in one scene, I was like, it's kind of weird that there's only like 12 people on this planet. And then like another scene, I'm like, huh. And then like it's the most noticeable when the big battles are going on. There's only, I don't know, maybe it was like regulations or something for health concerns, but you know, you use the CGI, use the green screens, use the whatever you got to do to make it look like there's more than a soundstage full of people in any one scene, dude. Like, it's so ridiculous. And like, I did not like how that entire movie is like building up to like a grand battle for the planet, and then it just never happens. It's like it ends off on a cliffhanger. They're like,
that was known. That was known before.
I didn't know it.
Oh,
I watched it. I was like, oh, fucking dude, let's go, Dune boys.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh man, this is kind of whack.
No, it was highly promoted that this was the first of a two-parter. Like,
all right,
everybody's all the press junkets were there, and have you read the series at all?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
I barely remember the original movie, dude. Like, I've never been a big Dune person.
Okay. That's fair. And maybe you have like the general moviegoer's experience to it. As a person,
I just went in blind.
As a person who've read the first 6 novels, which was like the original guy who wrote it. The rest were written by like his kid or like by whatever. I don't count those, but yeah, as a person who read the first 6, I knew it was gonna, where it was gonna end basically, so I was okay. It still left you with the giant feeling of blue balls, but I think for me it's because I know what's happening next,
yeah.
So that's probably why.
It does a really good pacing. Like the movie's like 2 hours long, but it does not feel like it. Yeah. It's like by the time you get to the end, you're like, what the fuck? That was it. And then you look at the time, you're like, oh my goodness, I was in a time portal.
You're like, my God, I just aged 6 years. You're the low-key version of Interstellar.
Yeah. So it's wild. But like, I don't know, man. That movie also kind of feels like you said, it's one vision, one artist that they wanted, like for this, whatever the studio gave him the control.
He straight requested to make this movie. Like he wanted to. So, I love it when super fans get to make what they want to make, you know. That being said, last week I shit on the Halloween Kills movie, and because the director and the lead writer, Danny McBride and David Gordon Green or whatever his name is, both loved the Halloween, and they wrote their own treatment and got the rights to make this movie. Super fans, the first one turned out okay, second one's god awful. So I mean, there's a flip side to every coin, but for the most part.
Why did the second one come out so bad, do you think?
Halloween Kills? Because they betrayed who Michael was and made a Friday the 13th movie with a Halloween title.
Interesting.
And even then, it would have been one of the worst Friday the 13th movies if it was truly one. So
would it have been better for them to just do that movie, but with like an original character?
Sure.
Do you think it would have done as well?
No. It would have just been a forgettable horror movie, which is what it is, but with the mystique and the namesake of Halloween, it'll be remembered for all time.
It's the worst Halloween movie.
Yeah, I'd rather watch the director, like 6, the theatrical cut, than watch Halloween Kills again. But yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, man. I don't know. I think it's just all part of like branding and marketing at this point, right? Where they just it's designed by committee and like they won't let through a lot of original ideas. But I think we're coming to the other side of it. I think in the next like 2 or 3 years, like this has always been my thought on it, where eventually big studios milk out their IP to the point where like they can't like turn a profit. Yeah. And then they go back to the indie scene and then start placing multiple small bets instead of these big giant all-in bets.
So what you're saying is very true. And since I'm a big horror guy, I'll do a little thing here. The 80s was the time of the slasher movie, right? Just kicked off in 79 or 78 by the original Halloween. And then from that period till about 1990, you had just a swath of a zillion slasher movies, most forgettable, some great. It was the greatest time to be a horror fan because you had something new every month, and then October was just ridiculous.
It used to only be October. They'd only put out scary movies in October.
So the Friday the 13th movies at the beginning, they would try and pick a Friday the 13th. So sometimes you get into like June Friday the 13th. Nice. So, it worked. But you had that, and you had this. It's a huge boon in creativity. And the best part about horror movies is they're typically indie by default because they're so cheap to make that, if you want to make a movie, your first movie is probably, if it's not like some sort of like emotional drama, it's going to be a horror movie. It's just the cost realization factor. So this is a lot of people's first stints at it, and it straight built studios. Like New Line Cinema is considered the house that Freddy built because they bankrupted the entire company just getting Nightmare on Elm Street made, and it did gangbusters and gave growth to what New Line is/was today. So you get that.
Yeah,
but
it's iconic. And then it's weird that like Universal try to like spin off like the Universal Monsters universe.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So you have the 80s, right? Then you have the 90s where slashers were not in vogue anymore because everyone pretty much has seen everything. So this
is where you get like Scary Movie starting to parody a lot of the common tropes.
You get parodies, but you get like one of the best horror franchises ever in Scream. Which was a satire of horror movies, done incredibly well. So you get that. Then into the 2000s, you get the J horror remakes in America, and
The Ring,
Ring, The Grudge, the
a lot of those
things like that. Yeah, exactly. Then people were sick of that. Then they wanted something new. So then you get the torture porn era of your Saws, your Hostels, things like that.
It was kind of kicked off by found footage, like the Blair Witch Project.
That's one that I missed. That because that was right after
it was
90s.
It was like right in between there. It was like the found footage started kicking off like smaller, where everyone was like, oh, we could just do this type of thing again, where like it really started kicking off like that bigger
true
torture porn
true. It came so then after that you get this resurgence because slashers are like in the 2010s, more slasher movies came out in the indie space, but then also anthology movies are kind of were kind of happening as well. You get the VHS series is probably the most famous for it. Creep Show came back as a TV series, and things like that. So I think we're in a good spot for horror. We're in the age of 80s and 90s remakes at this moment, which, man, was kind of kicked off by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake in the early 2000s, but no, like, it didn't really follow it too well. I think that was the only good one, honestly. Like, as far as remakes, the rest are just meh.
I think everything's going direct to like YouTube at this point for like smaller indie stuff.
There's a lot of good shorts. You get a lot of they're all still festival movies, but they wind up on YouTube eventually. And I think this is we're living the best age for discovery. Also,
there's
the best
also
and
like
worst age.
there's also like longer weird form content like ARPGs, like augmented reality role playing games.
Yep.
Where people will set up like fake websites, fake forums, and then like fake entire stories. Where like this guy, he had one where he was just a film guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a short, scary film series." But like never break kayfabe, right? Like this is real.
Yeah.
And so like he was like, "Yeah, what's this?" And like he sets up like all this like pseudo fake sci-fi equipment stuff for his films, and but he was like, "Yeah, people started like taking this shit way serious though, like freaking out, like he was getting like people like stalking him, like somebody like doxed him, like it got crazy real quick, like So yeah, I don't know. Like it's weird that you have to put like a disclaimer, like, "Hey man, there's not actually a ghost haunting my house. Like, this is fake, bro. Like, this is for entertainment purposes only." But like, you're seeing a lot more of that stuff now, like on YouTube, where it's like not a short movie, but a longer form, like
there's the I can't remember what it was, but there's like a popular YouTube channel where they did where they kind of broke into abandoned mental asylums or whatever. And there's been like Grave Encounters, the movie that came out, Grave Encounters 1 and 2, but like there was an actual YouTube channel that did that. They're like, let's search this haunted area. There's like hobos living in there or whatever, and it could have been scripted, whatever, but that's kind of like the basis for a lot of that. So you're right. So like I said, we live in an era of amazingly easy distribution with terrible discovery. But if you know how to game the system, discovery is amazing. And that brings me to
it's a lot of work. Like it's a lot of competition. Like in the I don't know, we talk about this every once in a while. There's like 44 million like video game channels on YouTube at any one time, like competing for eyeballs. So it's like if you get in like a couple thousand hits, like that's huge. Like
True. So that brings me to the topic at hand in this gaming podcast where we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about movies. But film and gaming, like I said, two sides of a coin. In terms of entertainment, film and gaming really are like cousins. One dealing with like an indie boom happened for gaming as well. In the early aughts, we had Braid was super popular. Then after that, it was just a flood of indie games that just dominated. But also one of the biggest things, and happy Halloween to everyone who's watching this now. Hope you guys had a great Halloween weekend last week.
Halloween.
So what I wanted to bring up
Spooktacular Special.
Except the Spooktaculars. Hold on. The Spooktacular Special. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna add like lightning to some bats or something. Like
you're not though. You say it, but you won't. But horror games, much like horror movies, if you're making your first game, like typically indie devs start off with like a platformer of sorts. But the other popular one to start off with is horror. You have like the Five Nights at Freddy's guy, right? I don't know if he's made anything else since Five Nights at Freddy's went.
That's it.
Big,
all
right?
you need is one banger, dude. Like keep doing that. He just keeps remixing it. He's like, five more nights.
Like what's funny is I don't find Five Nights at Freddy's. It's not my type of game, but I understand the cultural impact and the appeal of it because people like jump scares, right? Jump scares are probably the easiest. Like people who watch horror movies go, "Oh yeah, that's a cop out." Like that's not true horror. That's just you startling someone. I would argue that jump scares are the equivalent of a theme park ride. Like you
Sure.
go on a roller coaster for the the minutes or seconds of excitement, to
Feeling
get
of
off and then set of
weightlessness
silence.
for a second. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same thing with jump scare centric games like Five Nights at Freddy's,
Getting them
and
guts rearranged.
exactly. And if we look into the short horror like indie media, do you remember in the early 2000s the big meme to try and get people to do is click on like the long road video where it's just a car driving on a long road and then like a monster face and a scream will happen to scare
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it's the same thing, man. You know why why it was so popular? Because it's a theme park attraction. It's people like that jolt, people like that feeling, and it's not only is it like a startling thing, but experiencing it with others is fun. This is why Twitch works so well in Halloween, because people like watching people's reaction to horror. So
yeah, I mean, it always works best in theaters, right? Like if
yes,
you need like a group experience, and I think like with games, like I remember playing like the original Resident Evil. This game gave me nightmares, dude. Like because I was trying to play by myself late at night. I was like, one
of my favorite things, Resident Evil 3, I was playing through it with my sister when we were kids, and the nemesis could follow you through scenes. So he like burst through this wall, and my sister and I remember us screaming, and the tank controls there, but we were holding run, but we had to like run around him with the tank controls. Scariest thing ever. So I remember that like clear as day. I remember the feeling, remember how fun it was. We both laughed at each other for screaming at it, but you're going on a story here.
Just Resident Evil, I feel is like ruined many of people's life. It's like the deep psychological trauma. And then like years later, I saw the Resident Evil movie in theaters.
Yeah.
And that night I had a dream about Resident Evil again.
The game or the movie itself?
The movie, where it was like, it was like the city had been shut down and I was like trying to get out of it. And like somebody like dropped a nuke on the city while I was like in a chopper looking at it. I was like, it was wild. I was like, that was a wild dream. I can't believe it's like, damn you, Resident Evil, you got me yet again.
Got me again.
Yep.
Just when I thought I was done with you.
Yep.
But yeah, and Resident Evil is one of those things where the appeal is Resident Evil's a B movie. It's a B movie game, right?
Yeah.
So when the movies come out, people are all like, it's a B movie. Like it's supposed to be campy as hell, and I'd argue that they could do things better and might stay more akin to the games. Hopefully the live action series coming out or live action movies coming out will do that. But I will say what you will about I think they'll be at least watchable.
Yeah, I've heard good things about like the Blade series, like Blade, the superhero had like a TV show series, and I heard that's really good.
Oh, it's Sticky Fingers. Yeah. I've never seen that because
the same.
Blade
it was like Wesley
Snipes. I'm like, fuck that.
Same. You kind of own that character.
Yep. Wesley Snipes was such a good choice for that role. Even if you look at the comics, even if you had no idea who Wesley Snipes was and you saw Wesley Snipes later in life after reading a Blade comic, you're like, why'd they make that man into a comic book? That's just straight Wesley Snipes. It's like that 1-to-1. So, shout out to Mahershala Ali, who hopefully will do that character justice. Fantastic actor, but you're filling the shoes of a man who was basically born to play that role.
Yeah, and like I said, man, like all I've heard is good things about it, but same problem where I'm just like, it's a different time. I'm an older man, and like Wesley Snipes is my Blade at this point. But
yeah.
And again, I'm like not huge into like scary movies and all this as well. Like it almost like it's weird that they didn't make what was that movie with the vampires versus the werewolves?
Underworld.
Yeah, how come they never made an Underworld game, dude?
You are 100% right. The problem is a lot of the horror action games, you kind of have that of vampires versus werewolves, in terms of different types of enemies. Like hell, even Resident Evil Village just did that, kind of, a little bit. So it happened, but not Underworld in a sense. But that was like towards the era where movie-based tie-in games weren't really happening as much anymore. So maybe that's
the technology's come far enough. I wonder somebody has the rights to it. I bet somebody's like, this is $1 billion IP. I ain't settling for nothing less than
Right, and you have the leading lady that people would want to play in as a game in Kate Beckinsale, right? It's like
Yeah,
you have
so you
like
gotta pay for those
the Laura
rights.
Croft appeal, though. It's like
Yeah.
attractive woman, protagonist fighting monsters, super action set, heavy set pieces. Like that game makes itself at some point.
Yeah. I'm sure
it's
it's just
basically
like
Blood Rain. It's Blood Rain. It's licensed Blood Rain is what it would be
it
without
would
the
be
Nazis.
weird because like I feel like we've seen this a lot with other games based on movies or franchise where they can't get the likeness rights to the character of like that celebrity. So like it's always like some
Celine looking like fucking garbage.
yeah, it's just not Celine, and it's like you can't be close. So it's a completely different character. But yeah, man,
yeah,
it's weird.
could be. There's
Licensing's a tough egg.
What they could do is the Underworld prequel starring Rona Mitra. Rona Mitra's not as expensive as Kate Beckinsale, so you could make the game based on her, who they kind of look alike already. So that could work. Yeah. That could work. There it is.
You just get somebody else who looks like both of them. And
the best part is the Underworld movies weren't very great, but they're pretty iconic in terms of like, I'd say like marketing, right? It's probably had one of the better marketing campaigns, and it's a cool idea, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of. It was flash,
Evil,
no
right.
substance.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're not saying these movies are good or that the game would be good. It's just surprising that never was made.
It's also surprising that they made so many movies based on this concept. Like even like Resident Evil movie, when they brought that out, it was like a sleeper hit. Like they were not expecting that to like pop the way it did. And they're like, I guess we're gonna make 8 more of these or whatever they ended up doing.
Yeah, and ongoing because there's the reboot series coming.
Yeah, it felt like the second movie in there. I feel like was the apex of that series for me.
Yes, 100% agree. Not only that they brought Nemesis, but they were actually in the city. I think, the mansion is pretty iconic, even though they spent most of the time in the Hive. But nothing beats like a full citywide zombie event, right?
Yeah.
So I completely agree.
They messed up in the third one by going to like the desert, like Vegas. That was weird.
Yes.
It was like, oh yeah, now have it where there's no possible way a zombie can sneak up on us.
Here's the thing, and everyone take stock in this right now. This is some free advice. Whether you're making a movie, whether you're making a video game, for the love of God, avoid desert landscapes. It is so boring. It is so boring to have desert landscapes.
Like, we just talked about Dune for hours.
Yeah. But
it was also kind of
there's exceptions to the rule, right? Like Dune, Mad Max. You're not Dune. You're not Mad
also
Max.
Very
for the
little
most part.
bit of the Dune movie was in the desert. Like it's all. There's just like they used it more as like a scenic backdrop than anything to break up moments of tension.
Right, you're not Prince of Persia. I'll say those are the exceptions.
Well, also like in those cases too, the environment becomes the enemy, right? Like in Dune, like you have like those giant sandworms that are coming up.
True.
So like, so like the tension comes from like the environment could kill you at any moment in a desert type of thing. Yeah. Whereas if your main, monster's like a zombie, you don't want to be worried about sand.
Sand. This is the whole thing of the episode, man. Sand. It's cool. It's irritating. It gets everywhere. Fucking hate it. I'd say like in gaming too, like we lived through the Xbox 360, PS3 era where everything was brown. The last thing I want to see is a desert environment. Uncharted 3, a lot of it was set in like a brown landscape. Like Uncharted 3 was good, but
I got good news for you.
But
I think a lot of things are going to be sand-based coming up, at least in the next 2-3 years, for video games.
Because of new particle effects?
Yeah, and Unreal, the Unreal Engine. Like, they're like, we could just drop these Quixel Mega Scan environment packs that you get for free, and everyone will be like, this looks great.
It has free deformation, right?
Yeah.
So you can, that's all right. But yeah, if you can, lush green environments look way better than barren sand environments. I get from an aesthetic point of view, like why you would use it at certain scenes. Like, Sonic had their sand levels as well. So did Mario. Everyone does. But to center a game around it, you better be creative as fuck to avoid the pitfalls of all brown all the time. So, but with horror, you have let's say cheaper to produce. You get a visceral feel, and it's probably the type of game outside of a comedy game where you can go viral pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago, the big Twitch game was Phasmophobia, one developer game. Props off to that guy because he worked his ass off on continuing updating this game, and it's still popular to this day. Looking on Twitch right now in the month of October, Phasmophobia is one of the top played games for a good reason. It's the guy kept at it, and had VR. It's great.
Is Among Us a horror game?
No, but I could see you argue for it.
Okay.
The social engineering type games like that, I could see horror involved, but the graphical presentation, it's never going to stick with you. Is the difference? I would argue that, because for, I believe, a true horror game, you have to be afraid or worried to continue further. Not for just if the next boss will be difficult, but because
it's kind of like
around the room.
The end of the Thing or whatever, with where they're out in the middle out in the Arctic, and like he's like is this guy the monster or not? Yeah. Yep. It's kind of that.
Yep. It is. That's why I could see
your body snatchers.
I could see the argument, but
horror film where it's like there's taking over people's bodies.
Yeah. Like I said, I could see the argument, but no, I don't think it is. It is definitely a trope. I would say that one thing that we could do as game developers that hasn't been done in some time, not since the 90s, I'd say, and there's an attempt in the early 2000s. Opening up horror to all ages as well, because you create a bevy of fans that will go to your more hardcore stuff as they age. Back when we were growing up, we had a little game called Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Well, it's definite horror environment, definite like 50s style horror in a 90s world. But you had the crazy killer in a hockey mask. You had ghouls. You had werewolves. Frankenstein's monster, things like that. And then you had like weird stuff like the aliens coming down and a giant baby that was a boss. That was amazing. Like I would love to see creativity like that in this day and age.
We had like the closest I can think of is like Costume Quest was like the only other more like all ages style game, when that was like all the monsters and you're trick-or-treating, you got different costumes and you got different powers from the costumes or what. But yeah, man, it's open concept. It's fertile ground. There's not a ton of competition there.
So I would say to make a horror game, you don't need to set your contrast to low, set the gamma to low, and get some free soundtracks of things that just go bump in the night. You don't need to do that. You can set it in an environment of that, but you can also have fun with it. Not everything needs to be this visceral, bloody mess, which I'm like, in terms of horror movies, I'm a gore hound, so I would love it. But I think that the next thing that'll hit big won't be super gory. I don't think it'll be like super scary. I think it will be this fun, like kind of all-inclusive style horror game. It'll definitely have a multiplayer component, I'm sure.
There's been like 3 or 4 games that have been like shocking just for the shock value type of thing. It's like the game where like
Succubus,
those guys. So I don't know how well they do. They seem okay at drumming up like the clickbait articles or whatever. Like, our video game's going too far, but like it's like you said, like it doesn't really stick with you afterwards, right? Where it's like, oh, that was it was like those like old fun houses where it's like if they threw slime on you instead of like trying to scare you, you're like, oh, this is kind of gross, but all right, I'm just gonna go wash this shit off me.
Yeah, right. Never touch it again.
Yeah.
Those games, they have their place. They definitely do. And I think
It's the Gallagher of the horror genre, where they're just smashing a watermelon on the first row.
Where they fail is the actual gameplay of it, because a lot of them go for shock over gameplay. Like Agony had so much potential, but the actual gameplay was boring. I couldn't even get to the point where I was, feeling uneasy or scared or anything like that, because I was so bored with Agony. It remains incomplete in my Steam library. Succubus I haven't tried. No, I've tried it a bit. It's okay. It definitely has more gameplay than Agony, but a lot of it's just shocking for shock's sake at that point too.
When you said it, reminds me of the first Doom remake that they did, where it was like everything's dark and you can like have your flashlight out or your gun out, and you're like,
that was Doom 3. That was actually a sequel.
Yeah. And that was, I had the same problem with that, where I was like, I was so bored. I was like, I immediately went and got the mod where the duct tape
to the gun. Duct tape mod. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I was like, this is ridiculous, dude. I can't not shoot things I can't see. But like, it's all there to add atmosphere or whatever. But like, I don't know. Like, I was just so bored. I was like, this isn't scary. It's just frustrating because I can't see where I'm going.
Doom 3 stands as a shift, and it's because it betrays what Doom 1 and 2 were, but they were navigating in a new era where Doom style, like OG Doom style gameplay, wasn't in vogue. So they had to do
Carmack had just left, I think, at that point.
No, that was
his farewell, his swan song.
Rage was his swan song, so he was still there. He was still there.
He was out to work on VR.
Not yet. That was about 10 years later. So
it's in that pocket, dude. He started getting interested.
I'm sure. So when Doom 3 came out, Doom 1 and 2 were considered graphical just icons, right? After Doom, Carmack created the Quake engine, which was considered a graphical leap. Doom 3 was also considered another graphical leap. Definitely from a lighting engine. It gave birth to the idea of mega texturing, and then Enemy Territory Quake Wars just ran with it. And Rage was like its final form. But Carmack at that point realized he's always been more interested in making engines than making a game. The fact that Doom 1, 2, Quake 1, 2, 3 hit big was just a happy accident at a certain point, because
it was because they're so limited by the technology of their time. Doom was supposed to be like an RPG.
It started off as that, and then they did make an RPG though.
Yeah, they're like, it was based off like D&D. They're like, all right, so basically like there's planes, there's different realms, and like this is like the hell realm, and like you have to go fight your way through that. Like, and you're gonna be a wizard, and then they're like, all right, we can't really do that, so we're just gonna give them a gun.
If it became a fast-paced shooter that set the standard for an entire genre. So I'm not saying that they're bad at it, but that definitely time and place and gaming sensibilities just lined up with the zeitgeist. Doom 3 came out, and Doom 3 did very well. It really did, but it was not a typical Doom game. So when the Doom 2016 remake came out, or reboot, and Doom Eternal, that was what Doom 3 should have been. A fast-paced, balls to the wall, just horror-themed, just shooting shit all the time. I'd say Doom is still in the horror, spectrum, but it's not a horror game, right? Doom 3, the original Doom had some definite horror moments. Like, it was scary at times, but that was not the focus of the game. The focus of the game was you could run as fast as hell as you
running gun.
So, and they realized that, like, the new guys who are working on the current Doom franchise realized what the original Doom was, where Carmack himself did not. When he went out to make Doom 3, he made this great lighting engine, this great like perfect
mega
model.
Textures,
he
over
was like,
a million pixels.
Yeah, he was like, let's make this the scariest game of all time. What made Doom great was not because it was super scary. What made Doom great was because it was very fun and visceral, and they forgot that. They really did. Yeah. But from his design standpoint, right, he just came off of Quake 3, the most like fast-paced like arena shooter that was super fun, like of all time, right? So
Absolutely.
he wanted to do a mouthwash after that, right? So I could see why they went to the horror aspect, and I'm a fan of Doom 3. I liked it a lot. That was the first computer I ever built, was to run Doom 3. My dad
pushed it to the limits.
Yeah, my dad sold cars at the time. Doom 3 was coming out. He's like, hey son, we're gonna build a new computer to run this game at max settings, and
All the way.
we'll build it together. So he's like,
he doesn't know what he's saying.
I'm gonna sell a bunch of cars. So he sold a bunch of cars. We built a computer together. So I think part of the reason why I liked Doom 3 so much was like it was a cool bonding moment with my dad.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about computers in general, but also, just like the game definitely looked beautiful for the time. I would argue that it still looks good.
Yeah, it looks really good. And like the people keep modding it and adding like updates to make it look even better still. Like it's weird.
Yep. So there's some mods for it.
It's a VR now, so
yeah. So there's some mods to make it more in line with the original Doom's ideas. Like there's like I think it's ultraviolence mod or something like that. I could be misremembering, but yeah, I mean, the game has its place, and it introduced the cool ass theme that's still used today. So
I would say like a mid-tier step in between like a scary game and like one that's like more for a general audience would be the Left 4 Dead series.
Yes.
Steam dropped. It was kind of around that same time where everyone kind of like was like, how come they didn't do this more with like what Doom was trying to do? Because they had like the what they call like closet monsters in the closet, where like they would just spawn in like a room, and you like go there and you're like, what's in here? And you're like, this is just a closet that spawns monsters. And what Left 4 Dead did was I think they call it like the director engine, and
AI director,
AI director, and they like have things spawn just around the corner or something, like just to add and change the challenge based on like what you're doing,
how well you're doing in the game, or how fast you're getting through the level. Yeah, the AI director was a very neat idea. That
it's a great idea.
Like the Vermintide series uses something very similar to it. I would argue that Back 4 Blood came out, made by the original creators of Left 4 Dead, Turtle Rock Studios, who they left Valve. Right before Left 4 Dead 2, actually. Left 4 Dead 2 was made by Valve themselves. Left 4 Dead 1 was made by Turtle Rock. So they left Valve to work on Evolve. Evolve obviously didn't do very well. Well, it sold well, but then it didn't have any staying power.
It was a bad concept from the jump, because they were just like, we're going to make an esport. And you never set out to try and make an esport. Like that's... Like you just focus on your game, and like if an esport comes of it, then it comes of it. But like,
I think asymmetrical games in general are tough, and that was like their whole setting. So we can get into that in a different.
Do you think it's just like a flawed concept from the jump? I mean,
I agree. I don't know if it was necessarily esport, but
maybe that was marketing too.
Both sides weren't fun. There's a lot of downtime, but anyway, Back 4 Blood,
good concept, flawed idea on how to execute.
Sure. Back 4 Blood just came out, right? It's basically Left 4 Dead 3. The unique hook is you have these cards that turn into a roguelike as you're playing. Cool idea. There's something missing in Back 4 Blood that Left 4 Dead had, and I think it's the likable characters. I played the Back 4 Blood beta. I liked it, but I wasn't drawn to buy it. And the fact that it's on Game Pass, like,
is it the one that they have like all the hipster characters in it?
Sure. I don't think they're too much hipster. There's like one definite hipster guy, but the rest are they're like, even though it's the original developers, they feel like knockoff Left 4 Dead characters. There's like no way around it.
Well, they're always trying to play into like that original like archetype of like the the nerd, the punk rock chick or whatever. It's kind of all goes back to Maniac Mansion. Like, if you remember Maniac Mansion,
of course.
Yeah,
actually,
like, it's I would consider that like one of the
have it at my house.
OG horror games is Maniac Mansion.
Yeah, Maniac Mansion was fantastic.
Microwave a hamster in that game, dude. Terrifying.
Who was the main bad guy name? It was like Doctor something or other.
It was Ed, dude.
No, like he had like the doctor.
Ed knows his wife.
Yeah. But Day of the Tentacle was the sequel to that, which was also one of the best adventure games of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something off about Back for Blood. Maybe it's me. Maybe I like the idea of a co-op horde shooter like that, but I just am not motivated to play it. I don't know. Does anyone else have that? Did you like Left 4 Dead? Like we played through Left 4 Dead 2 together.
Yeah, like every
recently.
every couple of years, like Left 4 Dead's like everyone, because everyone just has it. So like, all right, everybody, let's play some Left 4 Dead. We'll play through it real quick. Usually around this time of year, like around Halloween, like we usually hit up all the boys. We're like, let's get 4 people, let's go.
Yeah. It definitely has a place, but do you, like you have Game Pass, right?
Yeah.
Did you get the Back for Blood at all, or
no?
You're not even interested? Yeah,
I was not even interested. I don't know. It's just one of those games where you just need friends, I think, to enjoy it. But like I've always said, like if you're playing games with friends, you're gonna have fun no matter what game you're playing, type of thing.
True.
Like, we're all out playing Valorant the other day, and like I was doing terrible, and we're all doing bad, and we're like all just like cussing up the comms, talking mad smack to each other, and eventually we started winning. But like
that was just you.
It was mostly just me, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that Back for Blood, it's banking on nostalgia.
Hey, I was getting frustrated, okay? I was calling plays and then people weren't doing them. And then they'd be like, well, I wanted to do this. And I was like, why didn't you say that though? Like I called this play and then you like went out and did like the exact opposite of it. And then like I'm like, we're literally here in the same comms. Like just tell me what you're gonna do. Like so I'm not expecting like follow up, because I will play differently if I'm like everybody, let's rush A, and like I'm the only one with one other person charging an A, and the other 2 people are like, oh yeah, we went around to flank. And like, why didn't you say that though? You know what I'm saying?
To be the in-game leader, you got to watch the map and your teams to not follow your plan. That's
just expect everyone to like disregard your orders and do whatever they feel like. I guess that's how we're working now as a squad.
That is something you always have to have in the back of your mind. You got to have your own plan B.
Everybody's a wild card.
You got to be like Hannibal from the A-Team, dude. You got to always have a plan.
Everybody's the wild card on the squad. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to do exactly whatever I want this round. And I'm like, why even have comms then?
For those who watch my stream, the wild card's name is Intoxicated Fable. He never goes with the plan, never goes anywhere with the team. I actually plan around him, honestly. Like I think I said before, I found myself becoming the in-game leader more and more, and I plan around Fable not following the team. I'm like, he's gonna lurk over here, do something else, and we're gonna go here. Then we'll wait for him to rotate. Yeah, it's getting better and better. But back to the horror stuff. I think Back for Blood is it's a game that's made it's made currently, but it plays like a mid 2000s game. There's definitely some improvements on the Left 4 Dead formula. I think the gunplay feels much better than Left 4 Dead ever did.
Is 4 people not enough for a squad, do you think? For like a horror game?
No, I think it's more than enough. I think that to keep the horror aspect, 4 is the hard limit.
I mean, there must have been like research or something, right? Where like every game's like, we're doing 3 players or 4-man squads.
Some horror game, like the Obscure series, that's where they cap it. It's 3. Obscure 1 and 2 cap at 3.
Yeah.
The Resident Evil Outbreak series, I believe, cap at 4 or 5, something like that. But they have tank controls. Like
do things become inherently less scary when like the group gets to a big enough size?
Yes, because you have other people to lean on. But what's great is some of those games, the games that do it well, when you have more size, you have to split the group up. It's just required, because you're not going to be scared when you have eight buddies with you. You're going to be scared if it's just you, or if it's one or the like a few of you, where you don't have the firepower to just blast your way out.
So I've been thinking about this more and more as I was like working on making that Bomberman demo, where like with online gameplay, and like I was having like syncing issues when I was trying to like learn how to do that, and I was like, how come more games don't do this, like to their advantage, where you can have things happening on like player A's side that aren't happening on player B's side at all? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, it doesn't make sense like why there aren't really good horror games that do that. Where it's
The
like,
Dark Pictures series is doing that. Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, they do that.
yeah, where it's like different synchronized things where it's
Yep.
like, hey, go hit the switch over there by B, and they're like, there's no switch over here, and you're like, dude, it's right there, and then like they go like stand there or something, and like something happens.
Yep. It's something basically what you're saying. So someone is doing it. It's just
Yeah,
not
nice.
as widespread as you'd think.
Yeah, it just seems like a no brainer. Like it just seems like the obvious low hanging fruit of like this opens up so many possibilities for like exploring game like teamwork, everything.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Like different maps for people. Like if you like open up your inventory and look at a map, it's different from my map that I look at. And then like maybe you could like drop inventory and like swap, and then like it is the different. You're like, what is this? Like
Phasmophobia.
yeah, man.
Yeah, that's
It's just to go play Phasmophobia.
yeah, that's one of the things where I'm so impressed by. Like I said earlier in the pod, that one developer, the dude really nailed down co-op horror. He really did. My only gripe is I'm a person who wants combat in my games, and not every game needs combat, and not that I've definitely enjoyed games without it, but in a horror sense, I'd like to fight back at the ghost, or I'd like to like capture the ghost, or something like a Ghostbuster style thing, or something to be where I could feel like physical skilled play wins out. Like
Okay.
outthinking the
I feel-
ghost and like escaping it's a thing, and people love that. It's just for me. I need something.
Are people leaning too
visceral.
much on the tropes of cell phone and flashlights?
Yeah.
I feel like every horror game, there was like a time, like about 8 years ago, where every game like you had a cell phone for the horror genre, and you maybe had to take a picture or something, or you had a flashlight, and that was it. They're like, in our games, you don't use weapons, you just have a flashlight, or you just have a cell phone. And I'm like, bro, that sounds like
Outlast, Amnesia, no combat, just lighting. Yeah.
yeah. There was like a little bit of a time frame there where there's a bunch of games that were just leaning on that.
Blair Witch game as well. Yeah. Like, you're right. So I think the point of this episode is just kind of meandering around horror games. I think to evolve the genre and help it move forward. I
said get rid of cell phones, get rid of flashlights in your horror game.
No, I think at some point you need it, because darkness especially works for horror. Would you just have to walk around in a pitch black room without anything to see? Like,
yeah, I would. I don't know. I would use like some of that like asynchronous stuff I was talking about. So like if you're playing with 4 players, like maybe one person can see like a path that you're supposed to go. One person's like blacked out, like where they can't see anything. So it's like you have to lead a blind like person, or like maybe they see something completely different. Or it's like all walls, and like they have to like go through like walls and stuff that aren't there by somebody else leading them through like a map. I don't know. There's
I think
ways
you're
around
brainstorming
it.
your own perfect horror game.
Yeah. I don't know. Like mine would be more about like teamwork and cooperation, and then messing with people's minds about what's there, what's not, like the nature of reality.
Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. There you go. That's a GameCube game. Where it messes with the player. Like it messes with like your input and stuff like that. It's like all like scripted stuff in the game, but it's supposed to make you, the player, insane. So very effective, very unique. So we're nearing the wrap up portion here. So let's end it this way. I know you don't play many horror games, Chip, and you've just kind of described your own personal horror game that you would play where it focuses on co-op.
I'm like a psychological type of thriller, which there's like the people in the space doing it are doing like the low level surface level stuff because it's hard to do.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and like I'm yes, yeah. So I don't play like a ton.
Yeah, no. Let's do it here. Favorite? Well, let's just end it here since it's Halloween just happened. Let's end it just kind of focusing a little bit about ourselves. Favorite horror movie, favorite horror game, even though you haven't played a lot.
Man, I'm gonna go with. Let's see, what is? Would it be a cop out if I just did Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 1?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
That's to you. So the first Resident Evil movie, the first Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
Have you played the remake of Resident Evil 1?
No.
Like it's fantastic. It's available on everything. It's a good playthrough, especially if you play the first game, so you kind of already know what to expect. But it's amazing what Capcom
Do they have
did.
live action actors in the beginning?
No.
Then is it truly a remake, bro?
the voice acting's about the same.
All right. What about you, man? Favorite horror film, favorite horror game, bro?
Favorite horror film is The Evil Dead, the original.
That's a good movie.
Love it. And favorite horror game? It changes all the time, honestly.
Evil Dead the game.
It's been Resident Evil 3 for the longest time. That's always the one I always go back to and think. But at this moment in time, right now in 2021, my favorite horror game is Alien Isolation. You play as Ellen Ripley's daughter from the Alien movies, and you're being hunted by xenomorph on a ship who's constantly hunting you, and you have to hide. It's very effective. You actually have some combat options, so everything what these indie horror games are doing where you have to hide and stuff are present in this game, but the fact that I can get a flamethrower and fight back just makes it that much better, because I have these ebbs and flows of being scared but then also being empowered to fight the fear, like literally. So it works super well. I really, at some point, I would love maybe it's hard to make a sequel to something like that where you're being stalked by something, because why did the main character put themselves in that position? So
I feel like that's another one. Like the Alien franchise has had the same problem as the Star Wars franchise, where it's like you have the whole universe and it's like the same shit keeps happening to the same like 3 people on the same like 2 planets.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So I think that we'll end it with that. Like I said, hope everybody in the listening or watching had a wonderful Halloween weekend.
I hope you had a spooktacular Halloween.
We're moving forward to the next holidays. We're in the holiday season. We got big releases coming. We will be definitely
Black Friday.
We will definitely
America's Thanksgiving Day. Yep. Celebrating the reunification of the North and the South after the Civil War.
What?
It's what it's about, bro.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. It was first thought of by Abraham Lincoln by a letter that was written into him to reunite the North and the South after the Civil War. Unfortunately, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, so Congress passed the National Day of Reunification thereafter in honor of Abraham Lincoln as a day of remembrance to bring back together families after one of the bloodiest wars in American history. Americans killing other Americans.
This is definitely total shift.
Let me. I mean, kind of all stays in the genre of horror films.
Anyway, I wanted to say that we'll definitely be talking about new game releases and what we're looking forward to, what we recommend for your Black Friday purchases. But whatever, I guess we're going to talk about the United States Civil War history. I guess that's on the agenda.
About Thanksgiving, bro.
All right, boys. I'm Mr. Gimpy. That's Chipmunk. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week. Listen to us next week. Get 20,000 of your friends. We're out. Like, share, subscribe.